What's up, everybody? Joe Fortin here. Try to maybe get a little bit of light there. There's some light. I'm making this video right now because I'm really feeling what I'm about to tell you, and there's kind of some reasons for it that I'm not gonna go into, but what I'm going to talk about is being authentic and being yourself, like truly connecting with who you really are and expressing yourself honestly. That's one of the things that Bruce Lee talks about, is, you know, expressing yourself with emotional content and being honest with yourself, not lying to yourself about who you are, how you feel, what you really are. And we live in a world full of fake people. And, you know, like I said, you know, last couple of videos, I'm not mincing any words anymore. I'm not hiding how I truly feel about things at all. I'm trying to frame things in a way where it doesn't come across as, you know, entirely negative, because I think that ultimately, like, there can be some positives that are taken away from this. And what I'm going to say, though, is that I see a lot of people that, you know, really are just wearing masks, and in a lot of cases are hiding from the world. And, you know, the reality is also that they're hiding from themselves. They're not being who they truly are. They are not in connection with their own heart. They're not in union within. You know, I talk about the twin flame dynamic and experience quite often. And even those on that journey, I know, you know, many people that are on that journey. And of course, you know, this is something that will be transmuted, that will change. But I still know many people on that journey that are presenting a falsehood to the world around them, or not really presenting themselves at all, right? They're hiding. You know, they have an inability to be who they truly are. And it's really sad. And what I'm going to say is that I've said this before, actually. I remember actually writing a post saying exactly what I'm about to say to you, probably about 4.5 years ago. And essentially what I said was, you will never know true love until you are willing to be vulnerable and show people who you really are. And when I say true love, I don't just mean in a romantic sense. You know, true love between friends, between family members. You know, if you're not willing to show people who you are, if you're not willing to express yourself in a way that is congruent with your being, right? If you're not willing to be vulnerable and to really connect with someone on a deep level, they can't love you. No one can love you, right? You cannot receive love from the core of your being, from the true I, right? The true I being the, I would say, the healthy ego in alignment with higher self. No one can love you if you are not embodying that. And to be perfectly honest, if you're not embodying that, you don't love you. You don't love who you truly are. Because if you did, that wouldn't be a problem for you. This type of behavior and this display of either a falsehood or hiding oneself is indicative of a deep level of shame, right? And it's not my intention to further shame people for carrying this shame, but it does need to have a light shown on it so that it can be transmuted. And this very much comes from trauma. This very much comes from bad parenting, first and foremost. And, you know, there's a great deal of fear associated with this type of behavior that needs to be walked through, right? Needs to be felt, needs to be integrated, right? But ultimately needs to be overcome. And there's layers and layers of emotions around these types of things. But the first layer is going to be fear. It's going to be fear of stepping through that barrier that you've had up for so many years, right? For many people. I went through this, and a lot of people have gone through this, right? And stepping through that barrier, stepping through that fear of allowing yourself to feel the shame associated with who you truly are, right? And this is soul fragmentation. This is a part of yourself, an aspect of self, an alter personality, essentially, that has been programmed to essentially shame the part of yourself that is a representation of who you truly are. And this is incongruency in the being. And if you are not congruent within yourself, right, what you will do is you will attract people that will illuminate that for you, and you'll feel a great deal of inner conflict in the presence of these people. And what that is your soul screaming to you for you to listen, for you to love you, for you to remember that part of yourself and not abandon yourself. And often this comes from like early childhood wounding, right? And that's why you see this polarity with people who are deep empaths, right? Who feel so very deeply, and yet will often display narcissistic traits on the other side of that coin. The narcissist empath dynamic, it's not black and white. People want to point their fingers out at other people and say, well, you're being narcissistic. But, you know, one of the things I've noticed in doing my soul integration work and doing my own healing is that all of those things, all of those narcissistic traits and behaviors and, different pathologies, right? I, at one point or another, had embodied all of them, right? And I had to be very honest with myself, right? And not bullshit myself and say, you know what? I've done these things to people. I have been that person. I am that I am. I am that I am should have a comma after that. I am that. I am that I am. Right? And the things that you judge other people for the most harshly are generally, take a person that you absolutely can't stand, right? And write a list of all of their negative attributes. Now put your own name at the top. Say hello to your shadow. It's very true. I'm not saying that you necessarily embody the exact behavior that they're engaging in, but you can almost be guaranteed that the energy that you're pointing out, you have a congruence with, right? I know one person who I recently had to cut off because she would not look at herself. And she was constantly complaining to me that she was surrounded by vampires. I keep attracting vampires. I keep attracting vampires. And this person was extremely vampiric. And this is a nuanced, very subtle thing that a lot of people do not understand. And New Agers really don't understand how to set these boundaries and do not understand exchange. And I'm going to explain something to you. This person would constantly complain about different aspects of their life, and it was always the same stuff, right? And I would offer them advice, right? They would ask for my advice, I would offer it. And this went on for years, but really heavily in the last year or so. And I kept giving the same advice. I was like, you need to do shadow work. You need to really get honest with yourself. You need to look at yourself, right? Would not listen, would, and this is what New Agers do. This is what people that are caught up in Luciferian programming do. Should completely rationalize her way around it from a very, very intellectual, heady space. Not wanting to face the darkness. Not wanting to face herself, right? And anytime I would point something out, she would move around it, right? And that's actually like toxic feminine energy, right? Healing modalities, there are healing modalities that are actually very yang. Heilkunst, homeopathy is one of them, right? It puts things right in your face. You can't ignore it, right? And you will face the energy and transmute it, right? Because the remedies that are given force that reaction in the being. But this person kept asking for advice, kept asking for advice, kept asking for advice, never following any of it, right? And, like we would have conversations, and it was like this person just wanted to talk 900 miles an hour and really had no real capacity to listen. And so, essentially was asking for help, wanting to receive my holding of space, right? But having no capability or inclination of doing the same in return. And that's an imbalanced relationship. And it is a violation of the law of exchange, right? Relationships need to be a two-way street, always. If you are constantly putting an effort into a relationship and the other person is not, right? And you continue to tolerate that, that is a character weakness in you. That is indicative of a lack of boundaries, and it is indicative of most likely having a narcissistic parent or someone really, really important to you in your life from the time that you were little that did this sort of thing to you, right? And made you responsible for their emotional state and expected you to listen to them when they had a gripe, right? But you were not allowed to call them out on anything, and anytime you got upset with them about anything, right, they gaslighted you and called you crazy and told you everything was your fault, right? No reciprocation, no ability to self-reflect, right? And, on the ascension path, self-reflection is absolutely the most important thing, and it is the major thing that most people are not doing. Most people are incapable of true self-reflection. That's why people cannot sit with themselves. If you look around, I know plenty of people that do this, right? I know a ton of people that cannot sit with themselves in silence for more than 5 minutes. They can't do it. They have to have the TV on. They have to have something mindless to distract them from the reality of the self, right? From the reality of how they feel simply sitting with themselves. And if you cannot sit with yourself in silence for 5 minutes, that is a problem. That's a serious problem. If you have to surround yourself with other people constantly, right, because you feel uncomfortable in your own skin and you need other people around you so that you feel validated and, so that you don't feel lonely and, like you're worthless or whatever comes up, right? That's a problem. You need to be able to spend time with yourself. And if you are this type of person, again, I'm not being judgmental. I was there, but it's really important that you practice this and sit with the emotions that come up. And I would suggest going out into nature and connecting with nature, connecting with the trees, connecting with the forest, connecting with the spirit of Gaia, and learning how to utilize solitude. Because you cannot, and I mean cannot, this is a truth, you cannot ascend without solitude, without some solitude. It's impossible. You have to be able to sit with yourself. You have to be able to face the energetic mirror, right? And not need other people around you who, mostly, the society that we live in is a society where people are addicted to positivity. They can't even handle someone having an opinion or a criticism or being quote unquote negative in any way. And that's really, really imbalanced and unhealthy, right? But people are so addicted to it that, you know, they cannot face the shadow, they cannot face the darkness. And this is a major, major issue. This is what leads to spiritual bypassing. This is what leads to what happened to, you know, the person that I was friends with, you know, blissing out on hugs and meditation and doing all of these, you know, like transcendental meditation practices where they bliss out, but they can't face their trauma. They can't face their own toxicity. I mean, you know, I noticed a pattern for months and months and months with this person, you know, where it was like every single time they reached out, it was because they needed something from me, right? They wanted something, right? And, you know, when I pointed that out, they immediately jumped down my throat and said, well, you know, there's no need to bring up the past, you know, with someone who's already healing from wounds. And it's like, well, actually, you know, you just got triggered and like attacked me for a bunch of shit that was unreasonable. And what I'm doing is I'm letting you know the behavior that I'm not okay with. I'm setting a boundary, you know. I'm telling you the way that you're acting. And this person didn't want to look at it, didn't want to acknowledge it. And this is what I've been saying about dealing with toxic people. If people are, you know, constantly being vampiric and, you know, constantly trying to hold you accountable for things but are unable to hold themselves accountable for anything, you know, and like you point things out, right, and you ask them to look at things and you ask them to maybe change their behavior and they're completely unwilling to look at it, and they're completely unwilling to meet you halfway, the only solution with someone like that over a sustained period of time, if this continues, right, is to cut them out of your life, right? And that's something that people in the New Age and people who are exuding toxic femininity, right, which is a thing, don't want to hear, because they have adopted what Nietzsche called the slave morality, which means that like standing up for yourself, right, and expressing your needs, right, is viewed as bad. That's placed in the area of the shadow. And what this does, it makes you self-sacrificing, it makes you a martyr, and it really, you know, it puts you in a position where, you know, you believe that everyone else's needs come before your own. And it's just not healthy at all. So, yeah. So back to the original statement, like, you have to be honest with yourself in order to be honest with others, in order for others to actually love you for who you are. And I will guarantee you a couple of things. If you express honestly who you are, there are going to be people that don't like you. And you have to learn to be okay with that. You know, there are probably going to be people that criticize you in all kinds of ways, right? Aristotle said to avoid criticism, say nothing, be nothing, do nothing, right? You know, and, you know, there are going to be a few people in your life, you know, most likely, that love you and appreciate you for who you truly are. And that, those people, right, that's your family. You know, those are your people. You know, the ones that stick by you and love you even when you're flawed, even when you're not perfect, right? You know, the ones that, you know, like, no matter what, even if you're going through a rough time, right, they love you, right? Because they see you, right? Like an avatar. They have a word that means, like, I see into you. I see you for who you truly are, right? You know, the ones that see you, that truly love you, you know, those are your people. But you can't even have that unless you're willing to show people who you are and connect on a deep level. And that's something that is really missing from our society. And that's why I have such a hard time socializing with most people, because most people can't go beneath the surface, and they're constantly lying to themselves mostly. you know, and it's really incongruent. And anyone who's awake and who is honest with themselves, and you know, who does, you know, just you know, like with me, right? It's just like, you see what you get, man. I am just me. I don't apologize for being me. That's the way it is, right? But people like that, you know, really do present themselves in a totally honest way, can't connect with people that are not honest with themselves or you know. So if you want to know love on any level, you need to start expressing yourself honestly. So that is my message tonight. I liked this video. I like doing it. I feel really good about it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful, and hope everyone has a good night. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button down below and click the icon to your left to subscribe. New content every week about spirituality and addiction from myself, Joe Fortin. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.